Welcome to Own Your Essence, the podcast where healing meets empowerment. We're your host
Lee Walzak.
and April DeMille, two psychic mediums and a life coach specializing in grief, trauma, and toxic relationship recovery. This is a space for deep conversations, powerful transformations, and real, raw healing.
Each week, we'll explore topics ranging from the metaphysical to emotional grief, addiction, mental health, spiritual wellness, and self discovery. Through interviews and personal insights, we aim to spread awareness, foster connection, and support you. You're in the right place if you're ready to set boundaries, reclaim your confidence, and step into your true power. Let's own your essence together.
Podcast disclaimer. The content of this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as medical, psychological, or legal advice. If you need medical or mental health support, please contact a qualified healthcare provider. This podcast also contains explicit language and discussions on sensitive topics, including but not limited to abuse, trauma, addiction, and mental health struggles. Listener discretion is advised, as some content may be triggering or not suitable for younger audiences. By continuing to listen, you acknowledge and accept these terms. And as always, thank you for tuning in. Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Own Your Essence podcast, where we get to have deep transformational conversations with some of our favorite people. We are your hosts,
Lee Walzak.
and April DeMille. So today, as you can see, I am not joining Lee by video, but for the podcast, all you really need is the audio anyway. So this will only apply to YouTube. If you don't get to see my fabulous fucking face today, I'm sorry. But today we have a fun guest. Her name is Ghenet Lee-Yong. So Lee's going to go ahead and introduce her, and we were going to go ahead and get into some topics with her.
Yes, she seems really cool, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say. So we are excited to introduce Ghenet Lee-Yong, founder of Family Holistic Practices and Postpartum Doula Services. She is a best-selling author of the Nature Immersion 6 Weeks to a Healthier Mind, Body, and Spirit workbook. So we are excited to introduce Ghenet Lee-Yong.
Yeah. Here she comes. There she is. Hey, lady.
Hi.
So Lee just actually read your introduction, and I really wanted to dive into your postpartum doula stuff. I really want to go there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing topic, and one that I've had my fair share of experiences with. So I think it's pretty informational stuff. So how did you get there?
I actually didn't even know that there was a such thing as a postpartum doula. I came across it, and I have been working in childcare and early childhood education since I was 15 years old. And my undergraduate degree is in cognitive studies, birth to geriatric and early childhood development and learning. But I didn't know that there was a doula, a person that did this job, until my son was 2 years old, and I was doing some research online. And because when you have children, you're always researching stuff as much as you can.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what is this doula? And then I was like, oh, birth doula, that makes sense. And then I read postpartum doula, and I was like, what's that? And I saw that a postpartum doula is basically someone that goes into the home and provides that support to families that is so needed. They fill in this gap that families need, especially in those first 6 to 12 weeks of a baby's life, where we used to have lots of support. We used to have aunts and grandmas and neighbors and friends who would surround the birthing parent and be there for that parent. And they would cook meals for them, do all the cleaning for them. They would help with the baby. So giving birth was not something ever done in isolation. It was never something done with just two people and a doctor. It was a community event. And afterwards, the birthing person was cared for and they were looked after and they were helped in this very fragile time. And so were all the siblings. And it was something that was celebrated and really honored within the community. And what I found being an educator is that, and as a mother, was that we go through this process of being pregnant and having a child. And then people come around for a couple of weeks, they hold the baby, they give you some gifts, and then everybody disappears. And then you're just left there trying to figure out, what do I do now? Because now the baby's crying and I'm tired and I'm exhausted and I still have to take care of the older child, or even if it's your first one, there are all these things that are constantly going through your mind. And we don't have the benefit of that generations and generations of information being given to us and being passed down to us. And so when I saw that there was a such thing as a postpartum doula, I was like, that is what I'm meant to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that because, like you're saying, it does take a village. And so for those of you that don't know, my Monday through Friday job is I'm a nanny. And I work for a beautiful little Indian family, and they still have very strong traditional values like that where they help each other. And that's not how I grew up. I grew up in more of the toxic gender roles, and I didn't have family to help me with my kids. I didn't have people to ask for help. Dad was a workaholic. I stayed home and did all the stuff with kids in the house. And even though I was exhausted and depleted, it was still expected of me. And I had no help, no support, no resources. And I pretty much wanted to punch myself in the face all the fucking time. Like, it was crazy. And I remember with my first two pregnancies, I was miserable, but I didn't like fully know what postpartum depression was until my third child. And that was a whole entire level of a nightmare that is just not fun to go through. So I love that you're seeing a need and you're like, hey, there's a need here. I know that, like, when I'm nannying with my family, these are two parents that work full time, and the mom's expected to go back to work at 6 weeks of the baby, but she's still not sleeping through the night. She's not doing any of those things, and she still has to work full time and do all the things and care for the kids and go to the activities. And someone's got to be there to help. And so I think it's really great that you're seeing that need and you're saying, okay, I've got to step up and change this dynamic.
Yes, it is. It's really important because it's not just, yes, you're there and you're helping mom and you're also helping dad. There's a lot of, I am very grateful that nowadays that we have a lot of partners who are in this together.
Right.
They are both changing the diapers. They're taking turns, feeding the baby, like mom's pumping, and then her partner is feeding a bottle so that she can sleep. But even there's still lots of questions. And there is, like you said, mom is expected to go back to work within 6 weeks. Sometimes mom is still bleeding.
Yeah, that's the thing is mom's body.
Yeah, your 6 weeks is the bare minimum, that you need rest at that time. And some women go through the birthing process and they're fine. They're fine within 3 weeks and they're up and running around. But other women are not. And then if there were complications, if the baby is colicky or whatever, that extends even further. I just finished reading the book Postpartum is Forever, and I'm seeing the name, but I can't remember the name. And this was a wonderful book because in it, the author talks about the fact that postpartum is not just 6 weeks or 12 weeks or even a year.
Right.
Postpartum, once you've had a baby, you are always postpartum.
Yeah.
Your partner is always postpartum. And then she even talked about grandparents and how their experiences of grandmothers and grandfathers when their grandchildren were born, the same hormones and emotions and feelings were triggered when they were first parents and their own stories. And some of them were tragic. Some of them were trauma and some of them were lovely. But that these are reoccurring emotions and physiology that doesn't change and it keeps coming up throughout the years.
Yeah. Lee, do you have anything that you want to ask her?
Yeah, I love all of that. And I love, like April said, you seeing a need and you really embodying what you feel like is so resonant for you. I would be curious if, because you mentioned how we used to have all of these different dynamics where people would come and they would help, and it was more of a community effort. And
Mhm.
I'm curious if you have any thoughts about why the landscape of that has changed so much.
Yes, I do.
We definitely have thoughts.
Have many thoughts and okay. So this idea that we have, and I might get so much pushback from this, but it's also something that I was feeling. But then as I'm taking my recertification, it was reintroduced as a topic from our instructor. So I feel like this is true. And there's also research. I just don't have it with me. That this idea that we have the nuclear family is false. Because even when we look back to the way Americans lived, it was generational living. You had grandparents, parents, and children, and the grandchildren all in the same household. And even if the space got too small, they built another home and they were still on the same property. And then there were cousins and uncles and all of these things. Now, barring unhealthy relationships. So we want to move that aside for now. That when we're talking about a healthy family, these were very community building types of units because then they had their friends and then their friends had their family. And then, so there was this wide community of people who was used to this generational living. But then commerce got in the way, and commerce said that more people needed to buy more homes. And people weren't buying homes if they were living in the same home, grandparent, parent, children, grandchildren, you know what I'm saying? If they were living on the same space, they weren't moving away. They weren't buying more things. And so there was a huge campaign that I learned happened. And I think it was, I want to say early 1900s, where they had this campaign with basically shaming young adults for staying home and living at home with their parents. And this idea that at 18, we need to push the kids out, push them out the door. They need to live on their own really came about because they just wanted younger families to buy homes. And that's not like the only reason, but a lot of the reason we have this separation is because of commerce. And I'm not against capitalism or e-commerce or any of that. We need money to keep flowing. That's how our society lives right now. But with every system, there is a pro and there's a con, and that is one of the cons. We have a wonderful opportunity as women now to work and be in the workforce, and that's lovely. However, the system was not set up for mothers to be in the workforce.
Right.
So when a mother is pregnant, you've got this 6 months, I wish, 6 weeks of maternity leave. And if you're lucky, your partner can get paternity leave too, and you can work on it together. But sometimes the partner has to go back to work in 2 or 3 weeks. So then you're really left alone working on this, trying to figure it out. And then, like you said, there's postpartum depression, which is a very real thing. A lot of women go through it. But even if you don't have clinical postpartum depression, your hormones have changed so much in 9 months. And then also in the birthing process. And then in this process, your physiology literally changes. Your chemicals change in order for you to be what you need to be for this new being in the world. And so all of that is so hard to manage. And I went off a little bit of your topic, but
No, it's actually, I was going to say I have some things to add to that, but we can circle back. Lee, did you have any other questions? Because if not, I have something I wanted to ask her.
Yeah, I was going to add, I certainly didn't mean to put you on the spot right away with that question, but I did want your insight as someone who does the work that you do, because I think in general, we have really seen in society, and I'm not labeling it good or bad, but there is a bit of a moving away from the kind of tribal dynamics that we used to have or village type dynamics that we used to have in strong knit community. So I do find it interesting from all different perspectives what that looks like through somebody's filters and why that might be. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Oh, no problem. And just to say that we do see a little bit of a trend of people trying to go back to that now, of trying to like do things like even grow their own food and
Yeah.
trying to have a generational homestead. And they're looked at it as like kooks.
Even the fact that
it's like, yeah,
even the fact that paternity leave is now a thing because it didn't used to be.
yes.
Yeah. So I feel like society's trying to keep, even though it's way too slow, but whatever. That's neither
Right.
here nor there.
Yeah.
But there are efforts being made somewhere.
Yes. I agree. And
So-
every step forward is a good step forward.
For sure. Absolutely. Progress is progress, even if it's tiny little micro steps. That's fine.
Yep.
I have this random question because I saw this video the other day, and I don't know who this guy was. I don't know if he was a doctor or what, but basically he was researching postpartum, right? And he was talking
Mhm.
about how there's just not enough information on postpartum and menopause and perimenopause and all the things, right? And he's talking about how we've all been programmed to believe that postpartum is these massive changes in our hormones just in a matter of days or minutes or whatever, however he explained it. But what he went on further to say was that his theory was not about the hormonal changes because our bodies are accustomed to being able to do that. It was about all the prenatal vitamins that we take during those times. And then all of a sudden we stop taking them. And then our body goes through this massive postpartum depression and all these like withdrawals basically from having all these supplements. And then all of a sudden they're just stopped or whatever. And I found that I just was like, wow, that somehow it resonated in my body a lot. And I was like, I'm not going to discredit this guy. I feel like there might be some truth to that. I'm sure there's several factors that play into it, but I've never heard it explained that way. I've never had any other experience where I heard somebody talking about the vitamins being an integral part of postpartum. And I was like, wow, that's a totally different spin, but I can totally also see where that might help or hurt rather.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see that because you're really not supposed to stop taking your prenatal vitamins.
But not
because-
everybody knows that. I know for
and this is true. Not everybody knows
Right.
that. People, yeah, it's not necessarily as, they don't emphasize it as much past because, and so here's the other thing. And I just did a blog post on this. After you have the baby, you have 3 visits. One of those visits is in the hospital.
Right.
The next one is at 6 weeks. 6 weeks later.
Yeah.
And then maybe you get one at 12 weeks. And it's a 20-minute visit to make sure you're physically okay. There's really not a lot of time to do education
right.
in those visits. And doctors do the best that they can. But like you said, there's not a lot of education around that. And also with the loss of that generational knowledge is the generational nutrition and medicinal care that would be passed on from grandparent to child to parent to grandparent.
Yeah.
So we're not getting those like really wholesome nutrients that we used to. Even if you are like the healthiest person and you're buying food in the store, one of the things that women are notoriously lacking is magnesium.
Yeah.
And it's because the way we grow crops, it has depleted the topsoil. We have no magnesium in our topsoil. So then we have to supplement it. So even though like you may be trying your best, we're still not getting all of those vitamins, like you said, that we need from those things. So we have to really be conscious. And we don't have that knowledge. I need to take a class on postpartum herbology because I really want to know what herbs are safe, which ones do what for the body and which ones are okay to take while you're nursing and all of that. Because we don't have that information like handed down anymore.
Yeah. So I know for me personally speaking, with my first 2, I was very sick and I was also young. And I didn't really experience postpartum with them per se, as far as a life altering huge event.
but my pregnancy was miserable with both of them.
Yeah.
And the second one was a very sick child, very colicky, like the whole first year.
Yeah.
But by my third pregnancy, that was probably the best pregnancy I ever had. And I went straight up crazy postpartum depression after that one. But I was young. I just stopped taking vitamins. I was more than happy to stop taking vitamins because having to put stuff in my body all the time, I hated doing that. And so I was like more than happy to just stop taking them. And so I don't know if that was one of the deciding factors that kind of threw me into it or not. But I remember it was significant. It was so bad that I was suicidal. I couldn't function. I was blacking out curtains and stuff. I couldn't sleep. And then I'd sleep all day because I couldn't sleep. Or when I'd sleep with the baby, because I was just exhausted all the time. I had no motivation I couldn't do my job as a mother or a wife or take care of myself or my house. And one day I went to the doctor and I was like, I just want to die. Please tell me what's going on. And instead of saying, oh, you have postpartum, I was misdiagnosed. And so
Many women are.
Yeah. And so it's just it was a whole fucking nightmare. It really was.
Yeah.
And somehow the fact that I even managed to get through that, which I didn't get through it easily. Yeah, there's definitely a lack of information and wisdom and grace for women during that phase.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know someone, and I don't have permission to tell her story, so I won't say who, but I do know someone who had postpartum depression with all 3 of her children.
Oh God.
And,
Yeah.
and it was hard, and it's not who she is. I know her. She's very loving and caring, and sweet and kind. And sometimes I can speak for myself, but I know there are many other women who feel this way too. We are taught to we're emotional. So if we're feeling something, just deal with it because you're emotional. Not a big deal.
Yeah.
People have been doing this for millennia.
Get over it. Yeah.
You'll get over it.
Yeah.
Just do what you have to do. And so we don't say anything because we think something must be wrong with me.
Yeah. But then also, there's also that catch-22 because then when we do what we have to do, that's a problem too. So it's okay, whatever. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. It's really hard. And that's one of the things about being in this space as a postpartum doula, because it really does give me the opportunity to validate the birthing parent in their experience.
Yeah.
And validate their emotions, validate their thought process.
And like you said, you get to tell them that, hey, this is normal. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not crazy. And you're not losing your mind. Like, this is all okay. If I had somebody around me during those times, it would have made all the difference in the world.
Yes. Yeah. And that for this one person that I know, she did have support, familiar support, which was great because then that other person just saw what was going on and just swooped in and just did all the things that she couldn't do, which gave her the time to sleep and then just do what she needed to do. But if you don't have the support, what happens? It can be very detrimental. And that idea of 6 weeks or 12 weeks postpartum, it's really a clinical number. It's not a real number. It's a number that they assign to something because they have to say in the medical world, from this to this and this to this, and then we can bill from this to this because this is the postpartum period. It's not a real indicator of what the postpartum period is. It is just a clinical designation.
Yeah. It's probably codes just for insurance more than anything.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would actually be curious to circle back to something you said previously about the ancestral wisdom around nutrition and versus what the nutrition is like today, because I, in my personal life, find that fascinating. And I try to stay on top of those sorts of topics and things. So I found it, first of all, very interesting what you said about how the topsoil and all of that, because I think there was even a study done. Don't quote me, everyone, on this. I don't know 100%. A study, I think that speaks about, they looked at the nutrients you could find in a carrot that I believe it was when our great grandparents were alive.
versus
Right.
now. And in order to get the nutrition from the carrots back then, just one of them from when our grandparents were alive, you would have to eat 100 of them today,
Oh my
which I
God.
pretty mind blowing. And
Mhm.
also, there's this parallel too to what you spoke about, where our ancestors were used to working with the native landscape and the native
Mhm.
plants and all of that. And we're seeing such a decline because of all different types of things, the native plants. And most people don't carry that knowledge anymore about how to work with those things. So I found it very interesting to your point. And also, I was curious, do you work with your clients with nutrition at all? I know you mentioned having to take a class on
Mhm.
herbology, but I'm not sure if there's any nutritional insights that you do offer to people. And I'm curious about what that looks like for you in your everyday life and taking care of yourself doing what you do.
Okay. Oh, that's a lot. But that's great. I
But
love
those
it.
are
I
great
could go
questions.
on
Yeah, those are good.
all
Feel free
day
to answer
answer
whatever.
about American agriculture and monocropping and all that stuff and how awful it is. What I will say to that is you're right. The quality of our food, even the vegetables, the healthy food, is not like it was before. Because people, like you said, they would eat based on their region. So now we go to the store and you want a mango and it's the dead of winter and you go get a mango in Tennessee. There are no mango trees in Tennessee. So you were getting a fruit that was grown in the South, in a tropical area, and then rinsed and washed chemically, and then packaged and put in the freezer or refrigerator and stored for however long. And after a certain amount of time, the nutrients start to degrade because it's a living thing. It starts to decompose a little bit. By the time it gets to us, it could be a whole month later. And what we're getting is not even 25% of what we would have gotten if we got that fruit fresh off the tree. And people were used to just, you grew your strawberries and you grew your things in the summer, and whatever you didn't eat, you stored, you canned it. And then when refrigerator came around and freezers, you freeze it and then you use it in the winter. And then when the planting season came back around again, you grew your crops again and you ate what was available. And the way nature is and the way it was created was that things grow during certain seasons that are
Yeah.
good for you during those seasons.
Yeah.
So right now, my yard is full of purple dead nettle. And now the dandelion is growing. And so I harvest that. That's really great for inflammation.
Yeah.
It's really great for like your sinuses and allergies, which of course this time of year, there's lots of pollen. And it's also good for getting rid of keeping your immunity up. That grows now. So you can harvest that. And I harvest it, I dry it, I make tea with that. And I'll throw it in salads too. And then over the winter, there are things that grow in the fall that are good for you for the fall. But we have lost a lot of that knowledge. And then to your question about, do I do this with my families? And the answer to that is no. As a postpartum doula, I'm not a medical doctor. I do not go in and do nutrition. If they want nutrition, because I did go to school for nutrition health coaching, that would be something completely separate outside of what I do as a doula. So as a doula, I go in to help support mom. I go in to help with education about baby and family dynamics and help in any way I can with the baby, but not necessarily teaching them about nutrition, so to speak. I can give handouts. I can help them meal prep if they want to and give like a little bit of guidance there, but I don't do like a full on education about that as a doula.
Sure. Yeah. And thank you for that. And I was curious because I did actually look at your Instagram and a few other things before this. And I love that you have a lot of holistic based content around food and nutrition. And so I was curious how that kind of works, if it ever intersects in your work or not, which it sounds like
Yeah.
it typically does. So thank
Right.
you.
Yeah. No, no problem. No problem. And I do at the end of my stay with the parent, because I usually stay about 6-12 weeks. I will gift them something that I've made. I make infused olive oils and infused castor oils and things like that. But that is a gift from me to mom after my time is over with them. Yeah.
So can I ask you, are you staying in the home with the family during that 6 to 12 weeks, or are you just going back and forth every day?
I go back and forth, and I usually typically do no more than 4 days a week
Okay.
because my specialty is overnight care.
Okay.
Because I feel like that is the hardest
Yeah.
time for parents. They need that sleep so that they can show up the next day and be present.
Yes.
Again, it's so hard when you're waking up every hour, 2 hours, 3 hours until the baby is sleeping through the night. And some babies just don't. I have some babies that will sleep 5 to 8 hours. And then there are others that's just the way their body is. They need to eat every 3 hours, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. And so that can be tough. So for them, 3 to 4 days is great. For me, 3 to 4 days is great because just the same way they can't stay up all night, every night, neither can I.
For sure. You're like, I
Yeah.
have a family and kids and all the
Mhm.
things too. Yeah.
Yes.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. I want to revisit the idea of seasonal eating. I know this isn't necessarily about the postpartum stuff, but
It's okay.
I think it's super important because I know that like our bodies originally were created to live off the land.
Yeah.
Our ancestors, that's what they did. And even if you go back to, if we're visiting the days of like Navajo on the plains and all the things, they, there was not, there were not fruits and all the things during winter. They had to have jerkies and all the things. And so I think that our bodies still haven't caught up to the rest of the world and are
Right.
still functioning at like caveman capacity. And so I think seasonal eating's a pretty big thing. Like maybe heavier meats and things through the winter seasons and then like more fresh things through the spring and the summer. And I really think that we have absolutely gotten so far away from I guess those natural dynamics.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. And they had like nuts and things like that. And regions had different types of food. So, for instance, when you're using honey as medicine, they say that you should really try to use honey from like within, I think, 10 miles of where you live.
So local honey.
Because local honey, that honey will have in it the properties and antibodies and things like that that you need to protect you from any of the illnesses and things that are indigenous to that area.
God,
And
that makes so
so-
much sense. And I think,
Yeah.
Lee, you even talked about bee pollen and stuff like that. Like he takes that.
Yeah, local bee pollen. I used to
Oh,
take it. My body doesn't like it so much anymore for other reasons. But same sort of idea, though. Yeah,
Okay.
that's you're building immunity. Or
Yeah.
at very least being exposed to some of the native kind of and local allergens and things like that. Or you're helping your body.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard. We weren't meant to eat the way that we do. We weren't meant to eat packaged things every single day. Our bodies can't handle it. And we can see that in the epidemic of cancers and illnesses that are out there. And then we come up with a pill or a shot or something to deal with the symptom, and we're not addressing the cause.
I can definitely speak on that one because I have been dealing with something for several years now it completely changed my life. I will say it ruined my life actually, but it also saved my life in a lot of weird ways. So for lack of better terms, we're going to call it mast cell activation syndrome right now, but
Okay.
we're not positive that's exactly what it is according to my specialist. But my body has decided that it goes anaphylactic over everything. So I can only drink one kind of water. If I drink any other kind of water, my body will try to kill me. If I can only eat these seven foods, and they're not processed, they're just like whole foods, like butternut squash, banana, avocado, like super, it's the 7 same things every day for the last however many years. And if I try to go outside of that and add a food, or I get exposed or cross contamination by accident from something, my body goes anaphylactic and it's a nightmare. It's a complete nightmare. So clearly that's not normal responses for my body to be like, okay, bitch, you're going to die every day. This is what we're doing now, because it's just not normal for my body to have those responses. And I think a lot of that comes from the lack of value in nutrition these days.
Yeah. And it's hard to eat well. If we're on the go all the time, You're running from, I used to live in the city where I moved out to the country, and the level of intensity in the city is like here.
Yeah.
Just like even in the way, if you go to the store, people are just like everywhere moving fast. And I am too. I'm not like different. I am like trying to get done and do what I have to do. Whereas in the country, people are way more relaxed. I can't go to this grocery store here and say I'll be back in 10 minutes because I won't. Because I have to talk. People want to have a conversation with you, and it would be rude if I were just to be like, I gotta go. So the level of intensity that we live, especially the closer we live into a city, because there's just such time constraints on everything. And unless you are a really great meal prepper, which I am not, I can be really great, like maybe 1 or 2 weeks out of the 3 months. Then it's what can I get? Where can I go?
Yeah.
What can I buy really quick? And even if I go to the local vegan Whole Foods place, there's still additives and all of that stuff too.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can say I am a phantasmal food prepper because I've had to be
That's right.
so that way I don't die. But before this got to this place, I was just like everybody else, running around, doing the things, going from place to place, grabbing food for myself or my kids on the way. Hey, I don't want to cook tonight, bringing home dinner for everybody.
Yep.
It's the hustle and the grind, and our bodies definitely are suffering from it.
I can totally appreciate the conversation around the nutrition and all of that and how it might intersect with chronic health conditions and all that. But to reroute a little bit, I'm curious because I know that you have mentioned sleep here, how important sleep is for your families. And I think actually I saw a few mentions of sleep on your Instagram and things like that. And obviously there's so much research surrounding like sleep in general being interconnected to our health and all that. So I'm wondering how you manage your own sleep, especially when you're working with your families, because you do nights, correct?
Yes. Yes. So yes. And then often I work during the day. And so I will have doula clients at night. So what I do is when I'm going to have a client and I book them ahead of time, I plan out naps during my day. So I nap a certain times during the day, and then I will save certain work that I have to do for the evening when I need to stay up with the baby because the baby's sleeping and I'm awake. So I'll just bring my laptop with me and just do some things that I have to do. And I make sure I get those naps. And I have dark curtains in my room that I'll pull so that I can sleep. I put on my 432 hertz music so that I can drown everything out. And when I take my nap. So when I have an evening client, I have to be very scheduled because my son homeschools. So I have to make sure that I'm temping in with him and making sure that he's staying on track. And if he has any questions, that type of stuff too. And and then also I notice a big difference in my sleep quality when I'm eating poorly. I will have I'm going through menopause. So I will have these days where I'm just craving popcorn or something like that. And I'll eat that even when I make my own homemade popcorn, my non-GMO popcorn kernels, it still like affects my body. Like it affects the way I sleep. So I notice that I sleep better when I'm getting a high protein during the day and lots of fruits and vegetables. My way of doing that is I love to buy those veggie packs that they buy for parties.
Yeah.
And I will just buy that and I will leave it out on my counter or depending on the time of year in the refrigerator. But when I go to snack, I will eat that instead. And I will eat so much of it. I will eat carrots and broccoli and cauliflower, peppers, whatever is in that veggie pack. And that will help me. I don't know if it's like an oral thing, just sometimes you just feel like eating something.
Yeah.
And you're not necessarily really hungry and that's some munchies or something, and that it satisfies that need to just eat something.
Curbs the craving. I used to do the same thing with watermelon. I always had watermelon on hand, and it's so filled with fiber and so filling that if I had cravings when I was coming off of the glutens and the soys and the milks and all the things, I would just round eat watermelon all day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for that. I was curious too, because I know that I saw a video on one of your social medias where it's like 5 p.m. wake up time. And I'm like, oh, interesting.
Yes.
I also saw, to add on to that, there was something that you mentioned in our video as well about how when you tried to search images for something of mom sleeping, you could not find you could not find anything.
I couldn't. Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then I believe I believe there's one for dad sleeping, right? Dad and baby. So I'm actually curious about what's that? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said something, but I'm actually curious though, because and obviously I'm a male who does not have children, so I can't really speak to the experience of being female and having children, but just as a person who is in society, I do feel like I
Mhm.
have witnessed this perception of moms don't sleep. Like that's just part of having a baby. You just never sleep. I'm curious if that tends to come up with you in your work and some of your families, and if ever anyone actually maybe even feels like that's what they should be doing, but their body's telling them otherwise. Shouldn't I be go? And my friend was go. And we have this societal perception. Shouldn't I be? So I'm curious if anything in that realm ever does come up in your thoughts.
Yes. Yes, it does. And it less so with my families or with my particular clients. I will hear comments from family members who are like, I just did it. that type of thing. I just did it. And but now they have this thing. And it's not that it's new. It's just that it's coming back around. And I think that it's a gentler way of dealing with things. And it is true. Like moms don't sleep as well. And it biologically is a biological necessity that moms don't sleep as well because human babies are helpless, completely helpless. A giraffe is walking within the first couple of hours, and so are many other mammals. I think maybe kittens and puppies, which are the most domesticated of animals, are also very helpless for a little while, but it's definitely a shorter amount of time than human babies are. And they need us. And they need us to be able to wake up if they cry, or they need us to attend to their needs right away, as quickly as possible for reasons of survival, but then also reasons of emotional development, because that's how they build trust with another person. And that's how they learn that they are safe. And that's how, from the very moment they're born, they are learning to build confidence in themselves, that when they speak, cry, they're going to be heard and someone is going to listen to them. So moms biologically, our brains, there's a hormone, I cannot remember what it is, but it changes so that we sleep lighter, so that we can wake up. So yes, moms do not sleep the way that they used to before they had children. But should that mean that they don't get to sleep? No, because moms are also the ones taking care of the baby all day long. And if you are sleep deprived, you cannot make good decisions. I can
Yeah.
attest to that. And you're grumpy and you're grouchy. And there's one thing about responding to your child's needs. There's another thing responding to your child's needs and being just irritable.
Being
That
an
doesn't
ogre.
exactly. That doesn't teach them to trust.
My favorite word today is ogre.
There you go. Yeah. And it was hilarious when I was looking at it. I was getting so frustrated. I'm like, why can't I find a picture of mom sleeping? And I found a picture and it was a dad sleeping and the mom was like smiling at the dad sleeping. And I'm like, what is this?
She's like, oh, nice. Look at them sleeping.
She's, how would it be? What the fuck?
So, yeah.
My goodness. My goodness.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that it snagged my attention. Did you want to say something, April?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, it snagged my attention when you said, first of all, let me start with this, that I knew that a mother was very in tune to a baby's cry, even when she was sleeping, because it's like a survival thing. I did not know there was a hormone that plays a part in changing and them sleeping lighter. So that's fascinating. It also just snagged my attention when you were talking about it lets a baby know that it is heard and that it's safe and all of that, just because my brain went to, even in adulthood, how so many people might actually carry the imprint of that wound, feeling unheard or feeling. So I just wanted to put that on. I thought that was interesting. If I don't know if there's any correlation or not, but that's what came up for me. But yeah, I appreciate your answer on that.
And
Yeah.
also, I think it's worthy of noting this too. Like our bodies, mom's bodies actually physically respond because our milk will start producing the moment a baby cries. Like our milk will just start pouring out. So
It
just
could be
for
any baby.
yeah, that's true
It doesn't
too.
even have
That's
to be your own baby.
yeah, that's true too. It doesn't even have to be your own baby, but like a baby will cry and then all of a sudden your body will respond. Hey, it's time for you to take care of this baby, get up and do your job. So your body still responds either way.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that we've learned a lot when it comes to, like you were talking about, wounds. And it can be a word that some people look at as weakness or trying to blame things on someone else. And that's not necessarily what it is. It's acknowledging the fact that from the very moment that we're born, even in the womb, we are learning beings and we are being taught lessons all the time. And a child cannot dictate how they are going to interpret those lessons. Only as an adult do we then say, okay, when I was a child, X, Y, and Z happened. In my mind, it meant KYS, but now I know that's not really what was going on. And then you can start to bridge the gap in this knowledge. But as a child, you don't have that. And then you get into, if your parent didn't have that to give to you, then you have all these kind of layers. So I do think that responsive parenting is very important in this, especially in this generation now, because how they see themselves is how they will learn to treat other people. And hopefully, eventually, we can get to a place where people are just being a little bit kinder to each other because they're learning to love themselves more.
Yeah. I love that one. That's a really good one.
Yeah. And yeah, and I completely agree with that. Wounding, it's not about necessarily placing blame on anything or anyone. I think as human beings and as human experience, we all go through different experiences and circumstances. I don't think anyone gets out unwounded, if you want to use that word. And I love what you said about, I forget the term you just used, but being very present as a parent and very, what was the word you used? I'm sorry.
Responsive.
Responsive. Yes.
Responsive, yeah.
I love that because it can obviously have, like you said, such a big impact on how they see themselves. And then that is what people bring into the world. And I
Yeah.
believe that's how we make change. So yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so really quick, I'm going to shift gears before we hop off of here, but I was going to ask you, I want to say the last time I got to really see you on anything live, you were doing some work with Alicia. Were you doing some lives with
Yes.
Alicia? Are y'all still doing that?
We are not as
Okay.
much now because her schedule has gotten crazy. And then I think she had some health things come up, but we did do one in January and
Okay.
we are like trying to figure out the tech part of it. And so I have got to get the video up there, but we are hopefully going to do one next month. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, no, that's good. I was going to say, I know you guys had been working together, teaming up with some stuff for a couple years. So I was wondering if you're doing that.
Yeah, she's a lovely, lovely person.
She is. She is super sweet. I agree. I think you both are. I think you're amazing as well. Lee, is there anything else that you want to ask Janae, or Janae, is there anything else you want to offer before we hop off of here? I know that you'll also want to tell all of our future listeners where they can find you.
Oh, yes. So I'm on Instagram, Family Holistic PPD. I also have a website. I have a YouTube channel, and I'm on Facebook as well. But mostly my Instagram and my YouTube, I'm just getting that started. I just want everyone out there to know, whether you are a parent or not, you are a child of someone and you are seen and you are loved.
Yeah, that's super empowering. I love that.
Amazing.
Yeah. Lee, do you have anything else that you want to add?
I don't think so, no. But thank you so much for being with us and your time and your energy. And I thoroughly enjoyed everything you had to share today. So yeah, we
Thank you so
appreciate
much for having me. This was
No,
great. This
it's
was
such
great.
such a great topic, and I am all about supporting more awareness here. Like it's such a great subject. So I'm glad that we got to have you on as well. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing your time with us and your insights. And also, I'm going to say a quick thank you to our listeners. And if you have any questions, suggestions, topic ideas, please feel free to email us. I'm sorry, at ownyouressence@gmail.com. But yeah, I think we're going to stop it here. So thank you guys. I'm going to stop this recording 1 second. All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Own Your Essence. We're so grateful to our guests for sharing their wisdom and to you, our listeners, for being part of this journey towards healing and empowerment. If today's conversation resonated with you, we'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share this space with others who might need it. If you have any questions, topic ideas, want to be a guest, or would like to work with myself or April privately, send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll see you next episode.